Let's get started. Good afternoon. My name is Piper Cruz from SWE headquarters. Thank you for joining us for this live learning opportunity, Latina Engineers Changing What Engineers Look Like. Some practical manners before we get started. Okay, there will be a Q&A with Diana Iracheta at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question during the webinar, please type it in the questions window and you'll be answered at the end of the presentation by today's speaker. There are the slide handouts available for this webinar, and you can find them using the handouts function of your GoToWebinar panel. For on-demand participants, handouts can be found by clicking Resources in the top right corner of the player. SWE values your participation and feedback on this webinar and future webinars, so please take a moment afterwards to complete the survey. The goal of the Advanced Learning Center is to provide lifelong learning opportunities that support the advancement of women in engineering and technology. Your feedback on this survey allows us to keep making the content that you find useful. I now have the pleasure of introducing today's speaker. Diana Iracheta is a manufacturing engineer focused on automation design. She is a first-generation Mexican immigrant and the founder of Latina Engineer and International Latina Engineer Week, an organization event that focuses on providing educational and professional development resources and hopes to increase the representation of Latinas in engineering and other STEM fields. And now, without further ado, I would like to give Diana Iracheta the floor.
Hi everyone, welcome. I am really excited to be here. It is an honor to be given, a webinar at, through the Society of Women Engineers, and especially this month that we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. So I come from Mexico, so it's really important to me, and I'm a minority in engineering, so these type of topics are really close to me, and it makes me really proud to be able to talk about them. So today our topic is Latina Engineers, changing what engineers look like. And let's jump right into it. All right, so some of the things that you will learn in this session would be to identify the key concepts that will help set up your career for success. So I always like to kind of cover some of the things that, you, I guess, want to look out for that can help you, succeed in your career, in a career that you enjoy and making it yours. The next thing is you will recognize how to contribute positive changes to welcoming work environments for us and for future generations, especially as minorities in engineering, and how we can change this. And the last one is to identify how to get involved as a professional in engineering to pave the way for future or for other Latinas, for the next generations of Latinas. Alrighty, so let's go to the next one. All right, so let's start with Latinas in engineering. And I'm not gonna give you a lot of numbers. I'm just gonna, just the very basic, Latinas in engineering. So Latinas make up less than 2% in STEM. And this is just in STEM in general. So when we focus more specifically into engineering, this percentage is way smaller, it drops way less. So it's really hard for us to meet another Latina in engineering, whether it is in school, in your work environment, in your work, in your place at work or your company, or even just in the area that you live in. So it's really hard to come up, of course, with someone else and develop those relationships, or have someone that maybe is going through the same journey than you are. So becoming a Latina in engineering, I think it has a lot of value, and actually on the next slide we will talk about this a little bit, what it means to be a Latina in engineering. But since we're still, we're a low percentage, we're not, a lot of us out there, there's a lot of challenges that we're still facing as we're venturing into engineering, whether we are barely looking into engineering, we're engineering students, or we are already professionals and we're still going through this journey. So what are some of these challenges that we face? So the first one is being first generation students. And this comes with a lot of obstacles itself. You can look into, college applications, financial, how you're gonna pay for school, internships, understanding what things you need to do to be successful in this career, looking for your first job, knowing what to wear for your, for interviews and things like that. So there's a lot that goes into going to college and getting an education. And as being first generation students, a lot of the things are not as easy for us to find out. So somebody that, it's born in the US or their parents went to college, it's a lot easier to feel comfortable and understand the process. And for first generation students, it can get complicated, it can be overwhelming, such as was in my case. I got to apply to universities twice. The first time when I went to community college, the second time when I went to a university. And the first time I did it, I was completely not prepared. I was overwhelmed, and to the point where I was not really as interested anymore. It was such a big jump that, I became to a point where I was like, I'm just gonna pick this school and go for it and then figure it out later. By the time I went through it the second time, I was a little bit more prepared. But again, it came with a lot of a learning curve and trying to understand, what I need to do and what, to get me to where I wanted to be. The next one is the language barriers and the lower, and that lead sometimes for us to having lower confidence. In my case, sometimes it's speaking one language, let's say Spanish for Latinas, and then having learning English, and then when you get to engineering, engineering can even be a third language that you're learning, not necessarily a language, but a lot of technical words that you're learning as you're learning engineering. So it can be also like a stone that you have to get through and start, like, even as a professional, that I keep learning new words a lot of the times, where sometimes I get kind of like shy or embarrassed that I don't know a common word that is really basic or really necessary for an engineer to understand, and it's just that language that I have never heard the word in English before. And a lot of the times, maybe not looking as the rest of the engineers, or not being, having an accent what the other engineers don't have it, can lead you to feel maybe less like you belong. So imposter syndrome, and having sometimes a lower confidence because you don't feel like you fit right in. So you see that also predominantly with minorities, whether it's in engineering or in any area in general. The next one is not finding enough support, whether it is scholarships, financial aid, and or even within your family, having that support where you have, parents that understand or support you through your career. Sometimes we find that as well as, we're the first ones to go to college. So it's not only the first experience for us, but for our parents, and we're trying to navigate that and trying to find, feeling the support that we have through our career. And the next one is the lack of mentors and role models. So to me, when I started my career as a professional, what I wanted to have was, it didn't have to be a Latina, but a woman that was, an engineering manager, or somebody that I could look up to, that, was a woman that I could identify with, that felt more closer to me and that I could find inspiration in. And so far, I haven't had, the opportunity to be, let's say my boss is a woman. I haven't had the opportunity to have that. But it's kind of like the goal, to be able to find someone that is accessible, that you can ask questions, that you can see yourself in, that you can set kind of like as a goal, to inspire you through your career and to show you that you can do it. The other part is role models, and this is going to come really important as we go into this presentation, because as professionals, we start becoming these role models. So how can we make a good impact and, be that role model that maybe we didn't have when we were in school? In my case, it was really, really important, the role models for the success, and I think to any student in a career in STEM, if they're minorities. I was lucky enough to have two role models, two mentors that were women of color immigrants in STEM, that were really successful, that I was able to, have as my mentors, that I was able to have them have, start continue to grow their life and also their career, that they didn't have to pick either or they didn't have to make a compromise. And to me, that was a key part in my career. And I was fortunate to have a present in my community college and at a four-year university, where I was able to see it, and I was able to be like, hey, I can do it. I can have this career that I'm really passionate about, and also continue, doing everything else that I like. So role models, I think, is one of the biggest thing for a student to have, and we have the opportunity to be that. I'll talk a little bit more about, specifically Latinas, what it means to be a Latina. The next one is unconscious bias. So, this one is one of the hardest one, because not a lot of times it doesn't have to be spoken, but there is a difference in how people, perceive you from the moment they see you, what people expect to be an engineer, and showing that, we're changing that, what an engineer looks like, and we're contributing to that. Next, we have finding resources that are specifically catered to us, where we feel like we're part of a team, we're part of a network, and we're around other, whether it's professionals or students that are like us. And the last one is machismo, or sexism in English, which I find is predominantly in Hispanic households where sometimes, women have their place, whether it is, at home, taking care of the kids, maybe, we're used to being the woman that wants to take care of the food and things like that. And we're breaking kind of like those barriers where we're going after careers that, are careers where we're looking to be successful. We're not afraid of making, having a higher pay than our partners, having, those dual responsibilities at home and at work. And a lot of the times this goes against, what maybe our parents were used to or other people in our family. So we're changing kind of the narrative and making it acceptable, like, hey, it's okay that I'm doing this. I'm happy doing this. And, there's no problems with that. All right, let's go to the next one. Um, can we move to the next slide? Okay, so what does it mean to be a Latina engineer? To me, it's something that it's two words that I say all the time. And, what does it really mean? How can this make you proud of what you're doing? Because you are doing your life, but I always say, being a Latina engineer automatically makes you a role model. You're automatically making a bigger impact than just, doing your career or doing your life. So the first thing is breaking the image of what an engineer looks like. What do we typically see when we or think about when we talk about an engineer, or what do kids draw when they think of, someone in a STEM career? They're not gonna either we're not going to think of a figure, or we're not less likely to think of like a Latina specifically. So, whether it is at our school, at our place of work, we're changing that narrative. We're changing what an engineer looks like. And this is something that I actually like to work on. Like I've had it with my network where I, collect pictures of different Latinas in engineering. And I put it out there like, hey, this is what engineers look like. And us as Latinas, we should not feel like we should fit this like cookie cutter, model of like what a person in STEM or a successful person in STEM should look like. Instead, we can do our careers, we can do multiple things, and we can still be successful. And, we're changing, we look like an engineer. And, I've seen it everywhere where this is growing because we're normalizing that, everybody can look like an engineer, anybody can do engineering, and this should not be something that you should be aiming to fit into. The next one is facing new ventures and paving the way. So we talked about first generation students. It can be first generations in the country or first ones doing a career in STEM in the family. Maybe there was not another engineer in the family before. So we're going through different things that bring us different challenges, and we're not afraid of, going out our way to find out something that we don't know before, put in the extra work, and, not giving up on the goals that we have. But we're also paving the way for somebody else that comes after us, whether it is, other Latinas or other Hispanics that come after us that maybe we don't know, or it can even also be just directly related, let's say in our house. For example, I was the oldest one to go to college, and especially in the US. So actually, just in the US. So for us, it was really, we didn't understand the process of applications. I was overwhelmed. It was challenging. My dad and I, because he was the one helping me, we were both learning at the same time. So it was difficult to like know exactly what we needed to do. And we went through it together. And now that I'm done with college, and my sister is getting close, she's 16, she's looking into colleges. Even my brother that's 13 now, they feel way more comfortable at knowing what are the next steps, at looking into college, at exploring different careers. And to me, that makes me feel really proud because we were able to open that path where with me, it was a little bit more scary. And with them, it's way more easy for them to navigate that path. My dad is more experienced. He's able to help them more. They saw me go through college. They saw me go through, applications, through the worst parts where I would like study and work and didn't sleep and was stressing out about a test that maybe I failed. But they also see me now where I didn't give up. I was able to finish my career, and they're like, oh, hey, and, my sister went through all that and she was just fine. I can do a career too. And it's something that makes me really happy to talk about because even like, for example, my sister might not be going into engineering specifically, but my brother always comes and talks to me about, hey, I want to do engineering. And he tells me about the different types of engineering that he's interested in and schools and things like that. So I'm able to kind of like bring him along with me and show him a little bit so that he's more used to it. And it just overall makes better experience for them, an easier experience for them than it was for me. So again, it can be as close as at home with your direct relatives, or it can be with other students. It can be a neighbor or somebody else that sees that, they learn that you're an engineer and you're a woman and you're a Latina, and there may be a little girl that's a Latina, and they can see that it is possible that they can do it. The next one is leaving an impact. I'm gonna tell you a little story with this one, and is so I've been out of college for 3 years. So I've been a professional for 3 years. I did my first job for about 2 years and a half, and now I've been at my newer job for 6 months now. And when I was at my first job, I always focused about, what I wanted to learn, to, do my job, to be successful, to fulfill, the role that I was put into, that I started as an intern and eventually transitioned into a full time. But I never really thought about anything else than that, just me focusing on myself. When I was getting ready to move into my new job, I had already put on my 2 weeks. My boss told me something that I will probably remember, as I move forward, because it was really meaningful to me. And he told me that he was going to look for another Latina engineer to, or try at least to fulfill this position that I was leaving, because, I had demonstrated that I was successful, I had what it takes, and you really needed the skills that I had, like, for example, the bilingual Spanish specifically, for the job that I was doing. And to me, that's when it kind of opened my eyes, because I not only did what I wanted to, like, focus on myself, but by doing that, I had already opened the doors for somebody else, another Latina that was coming after me. So the moment that that other Latina came and filled out this position, she was gonna have, people were gonna have higher, expectations for her, in a good way. Like, they were gonna, expect just as much or even more, that they could do better than me. They were gonna have more respect. It was gonna be easier for them to navigate, let's say, the meetings where I was sitting and I was, like, the only woman or the only Latina in the room, full of, men with, with more experience than me. I felt like I was able to contribute that little bit, and I was able to open that position for someone else. And that's when it became like, hey, I'm doing something more than myself. Just by focusing on me, I'm already creating that path for someone else. So think about it like that for yourself as well. We selected engineering because, we're passionate, or whatever reason you've selected engineering, but we're able to bring that with us. We're not only building our success, but we're making room for those coming after us. And the last one is becoming role models. The lack of role models that we have for Hispanics, and specifically, when I was going through college, my role model was Katherine Johnson. She was not Hispanic, she was not Latina, but I was able to connect with, being a minority, being a woman, being in STEM, and that was enough to, inspire me. So now think about someone that you can relate even more to that. So we're feeling that, and you don't have to be, active and being, always, volunteering or giving talks and things like that. But just by the fact that you're, a Latina engineer, you're already becoming that role model to whoever gets to meet you that is interested in engineering, that is just like you. With me, it happened, for example, with my neighbors. My neighbor came to me and she asked me what I was doing, because I got home from work just wearing dress clothes for work. And she started asking me what I did, and I was able to share what I was doing. I was able to bring the engineering opportunity, present it to her and be like, hey, this is what I do. And so it's ways that you can, create some inspiration, or change a little bit, or open the door to, engineering has so many possibilities. All right, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so let's jump into how to succeed in your career, how to make your career yours and really enjoy it. And something I like to point out always is, guide your career, don't let your career guide you. So it's really easy for us to fall into, doing what everybody else is doing, or just in a habit of our routine. When you're in college, you kind of like, oh, let's just take the class where my friends are, or the classes that everybody takes. When you're at a job, it's really easy to just be like, I'm comfortable in this job, and then I just kind of like stay in that. But instead of looking, what do we want to get out of our career? What is the end goals, and how can you work towards that, let's say every day or every week? And some of the things that you want to consider when crafting your career to, this is my ideal career, this is what I want to do. The first one is to understand your priorities. So, and this goes along with when you picked engineering? Why you picked engineering? Was it because, you had a passion for physics or for STEM? Was it because you wanted, a good career, a stable career, a high pay? You wanted to change the stats on STEM? What was it that drove you into engineering? Because this is also going to drive you to like what type of job or career you want to have. Other things that you want to consider about is the time, how much time commitment you want to have in your career, your commute, where you want to be located, how much you want to grow, where is your pay range, your desired pay range. So look at all those things that are important to you, and that's going to help you craft exactly what you're looking for. Because the one job that everybody wants doesn't mean it's the same job that you're gonna happy with. There's a lot of people that have their goal to work at a specific company. There's a lot of people that want to work, let's say, at NASA, but there's a lot of people that instead they value more the benefits that they get of their career, or the position that they have, or the industry that they get to work, let's say renewable energy or biomedicine. So it all depends to what you enjoy, what are your priorities, what do you want to get more out of this career, and that's going to help you craft it the way that it's your career, because you're the one that's going to be working every day at that job. The next one is to set a timeline. So where do you want to see yourself in 5 years? What is the end goal? How much do you want to grow within a company, within your position? And that's also going to help you figure it out. Since at this point, I'm referring more to like professional. It's not as much as like when you're a student where you're trying to figure out, whether you want to go, you want to stay in school to do for grad school or a doctor's degree. It's so sometimes I focus on those things where it's just like, do you want to do, let's say you're a professional and you want to go to school, when is the right time to go to get a master's? How can you get this master's, sponsor and things like that? So figure out what the timeline is so that you can match it with the priorities that you have and you can craft your career. The next one is point out learning outcomes. So what do you want to get from this career? What do you want to emphasize in? Maybe you get an opportunity to, transition into a different opportunity that focuses on what you've been looking to. For example, in my change from my previous job to this job, I went from being a manufacturing engineer, more focuses on processing, and I saw this change as an opportunity to go more into automation design. So it was kind of like a critical step to, now is the time where I want to start getting into this area because it's growing a lot and I'm really interested. And, I have to start somewhere, and I find an opportunity that's letting me venture into it and grow and learn as I'm going. So it was kind of like the step to go into that. So what is it that you want to focus on? What are your learning outcomes for where you're at right now? And then the last one is to always consider the advantages versus the disadvantages when you're making a decision, whether it is switching your career or switching your job or things like that. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so stand out. As minorities, we already stand out because we're either the only woman in the room or the only Hispanic or Latina. But how do we stand out, in a good way where we are, a step ahead, when we are showing ourselves that we have what it takes, that we can be successful and that we want to be successful? So the first one is to continue learning. So just because you're done with school doesn't mean that you have to stop right there. So what are some of the things that you can continue learning that can help you, stand out, to have more qualifications when you're looking for a promotion, you're looking for your next opportunity? So you can attend seminars, you can take courses. So sometimes it doesn't have to be a full master's program or a PhD, but it can be, one semester, one class, or maybe even shorter. What other, little courses there are available for you that focuses on the area that you're working or that you have interested in? Another thing is getting certifications. So a lot of certifications, a really popular one is like, for example, for manufacturing or industrial engineers is your Green Belt, Six Sigma, things like that. So what certifications can help you in the position or the type of engineering field that you are in? What you can learn from. Like sometimes even just attending, like let's say conferences or expos can help you out a lot. Like as a manufacturing engineer, for me it's the funnest kind of like conference that I attend that is more like I get to learn a little bit, like open my eyes to what's coming up next as far as technology is going to those where you have, for example, FabTech. I was able to see everything that was like all the new equipment, all the new manufacturing. And to me, it was really excited because I came back to work the next day and I was able to be excited, like we could do this and, there's that and like we can innovate this and things like that. So it was like a little bit of, there wasn't really anything educational, but it was just motivational to me, where I came back and I was, ready to, start a new project, a new innovation in the company. But, it can be seminars. Like I went to a seminar last month about specifically in our industry, powder metal, really curated, a classroom for only 10 people. You can go to like another course or seminar that can be more larger. The next one is to network. So develop a network, find, and it can be, it can be with mentors, it can be with other engineers that are like you, being part of societies like this where you meet other women in engineering. Um, this will help you find new opportunities. We always hear the kind of like burst that, networking will open doors that sometimes education does. And sometimes your network will help you, they will empower you, they will support you, they will be just, kind of like your references. They will tell you about opportunities that sometimes just on your own you might not heard of. And it just develop a great sense of belonging and inspiration as well. Now meeting so many other Latinas in engineering has really been inspired, seeing what they're working on, some of them deciding to pursue a master's degree, giving you that inspiration, like, hey, that's an opportunity that I had that before I hadn't thought about, but this person is doing it. Let me research it and see if that's something that fits within what I want to do myself. So having a network can help you in many different ways. And the last one is to develop social skills. So as engineers, we tend to think, well, in my case, especially, I feel like I fit, this stereotypical thing that we think of engineers: quiet, kind of like introverts, not really out there. But actually, the people that are good at communicating are the ones that stand out the most. And so I always, suggest, develop your social skills, practice giving speeches, if you did a project and at the end you have to present, what are the findings or the innovations or how much you say about this project, be sure to be confident about it and practice it. And, if you're, for example, I see it a lot with interns right now, we have interns at the company during the summers, and the way that they kind of like give their message at the end, it can really mean a lot, the way that you share, the confidence that you project when you're presenting versus somebody else that maybe it's not as much, even though both persons have the same content or they did just as much work or as much success. It comes down a lot to the presentation, the delivery of their message. So, even if, we tend to be shy or we're not really like fans of giving a talk to someone else or presenting, it is a really good skill to have no matter what career or what field and area you are. So I always recommend, I've had people that join, speech clubs like on their afternoons, and they present to people, random people that they don't know. But at the end of the day, it brings them confidence to be like, hey, I can present at work this project that I worked so hard for and that it did good, it was successful, and you have those good presentation skills. It's going to help you out a lot in the long run. All right, let's go to the next slide. So women in engineering, changing their own narrative. How are we changing this? Because through the past couple of years, I've seen a lot of growth in, empowerment, and how can we make engineering a world where we belong? Because other things that I always mention is, engineering is a two world. It's the woman world versus the men's world. We don't have the same experience. Unfortunately, we don't have the same experience. So what are we doing? What can we do to change this narrative? So the first one is to ally up. So I noticed that a lot of women are sticking together. We're, empowering each other. We are helping each other grow. We are welcoming. We're not like, one of the boys. We're more like, hey, we want more women. We need the diversity. And, we're speaking up. We're pointing out in welcoming environments or experiences. We're trying to share our journey. And something that I see a lot, and specifically because I'm on Instagram a lot as if you want to call it an influencer, which is still weird to like call myself that. But I see it a lot that it's growing, that we're not just doing our careers, but we're going out there and we're sharing our journey, because there's a lot to learn from that. And if, I went through a negative experience and I can share it and I can tell you what I learned from, then I can help someone else navigate that as well. Or if like somebody else asks me a question, I'm more than happy to help them and be like, hey, maybe this is the way that we can switch it over. This is how we can react better. To change that, to not let those environments keep repeating for everybody else. Maybe you already went through it, but it's going to happen to the next person if you don't do a change. So how can we work together to do that? The next one is speaking up. So just like I was saying with the first one, we're sharing our stories and we're not staying quiet about it. And I have a story here where it's more like college related, but it can apply to any environment, at work as well. So there was a professor that he would always, and this is a story from another Latina engineer that has shared with me. There's a professor that in his class he would always like to ask questions to the woman specifically in the classroom, and he would do it with a way to make them embarrassed. So he would ask hard questions to them, and if they got the right answer, he would keep asking questions until they would get the wrong answer, and he would get kind of like his goal to make them feel embarrassed and make them feel welcome in that environment, in that classroom in engineering. So it is really sad to see, but it's also really, I guess it's really bad to just kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna put up with this semester, and then that's it. I'm gonna be out of there. But what this brings is that this is not gonna change. You might be out of that environment, but the next person, the next girl that comes next semester, is gonna go through the same thing. And the other person, the professor that's doing that, they're never gonna realize how wrong it is what they're doing. So if we don't, if somebody else sticks with her, one, we're gonna have more confidence speaking up if we team up together, but we're also gonna stand out and see that, show that other person that it's not okay. It's not, we're not in an era where, women are different than men. We're doing the same careers, and we have shown that can be successful in this career. So we should not take those circumstances or those situations where somebody is making you feel unwelcome and feeling like you don't belong in engineering, because there is room for women in engineering and they're more than qualified to become engineers. So a lot of times it's really important to speak up, and this is also way easier when we ally up together. So if you see another woman in engineering, whether it is in the classroom or whether it's a job, team up together and know that you have each other's back. I don't know if actually McKenna is watching this, but when I came into work, there were no women engineering before I started at this position, and within the last 6 months, there's 3 of us now. So we went from 0 to 3 out of 10, maybe 15 engineers, and that was a big change. And to me, I was the first one to start. And before, the last of the women that joined the team in engineering, I was already waiting for her. I was already like, we're gonna be friends, and it's gonna be so fun because there's gonna be more women in engineering. We're gonna increase the diversity. So I was really happy for it. I wasn't, sometimes we see a lot, women tend to, especially in engineering, when there's like a team of male engineers and you're the woman, you try to fit in with that team and you're just kind of like one of the boys, and instead trying to make space for the woman they're coming with and being welcoming and making that room to make it more diverse. And the last one is creating resources of their own. So like, what are we doing? Maybe we don't have the mentors, maybe we don't have scholarships, maybe we don't have events that focus on women like us or Latinas more specifically in engineering. We're not stopping there, we saw that we had that lack, and we're going out there and filling those gaps. We're becoming mentors, we're speaking out, we're sharing our stories, we're joining clubs, we're participating into these events, helping fund the events, help create scholarships and things like that. So we're no longer settling with like not having the resources. We're going out there and creating these resources. All right, next slide, please. So allying up to make a change. How can we make this change as Latinas in engineering? And this apply also with, women in general or any minority in engineering. So the first one is, advocates for the things that will support your career, even if it introduces something never done before. I just shared with you, there were no women in the engineering teams before 6 months ago in our company. Now we're 3 women in the engineering teams. What did we do? We were interested into attending the Society of Women Engineer conference. We wanted to see if we could get a sponsor to go. Let's just throw it out there. Let's just see if we can get sponsored. It's something that we all wanted to go when we were students, and we never got to go. Now as professionals, we either couldn't take the time off of work or we couldn't afford to go for a couple of days out there. So we were like, let's just throw it out there, see if we can do it. And we asked the question, and we were kind of like afraid, like we didn't know what the answer was gonna have. And we ended up getting a really good reaction out of it. And now we are gonna be the first time that the company sends women engineers into this conference and they sponsor them, but we're also combining multiple divisions. So it's not only us three that we're going, we're bringing other women engineers from different locations within our company, and we're all meeting out there. Some of us haven't even met before in person because we're in different parts of the country, and we're gonna go all together and meet out there. And it was something that wasn't done before in the company, and all it took was for us to ask one question and then, keep kind of like when we got an answer, just kind of like research and be like, how this is gonna help us. And it was something that wasn't done before, just because we hadn't looked at it. So don't be afraid of asking for something that maybe wasn't done before. The worst thing that you can get is a no, but also how can look for the things that are gonna support you. So there's like kind of two things within that point. The next one is to find your network, be active. So, maybe there's no one like you, there was no one like you in school. Maybe you're the only woman in the engineering team. Go out there and find the network that you can, interact with. Being part of Society of Women Engineers is already something that you're doing to go out there and meet other women in engineering. Search in different groups. Like, for example, when I was in school, I never decided to Google the words Latina Engineer, whether it was on Instagram, on Facebook, on Google. I just never thought about it. And if I had only done it sooner, I would have found, a network of Latinas in engineering that to kind of like go to earlier in my career, and it would have made a bigger impact in my life because I would have given me encouragement, sense of belonging, and just overall made me more confident in my career. And it's something that I really enjoy now. We have a group chat actually on Instagram where we're able to ask questions like whether it's salary or negative experience, or if somebody's having a bad day, we can go in there and like chat about it. So we have touched on a lot of many different topics that if I wasn't in that group, I wouldn't have other girls, other Latinas in the same fields that we could talk about these topics, being professionals, being in engineering, and just having, that place where we can all be comfortable, we can ask those questions, and we all have similar experiences by being Latinas in STEM. The next one is to be open about your obstacles and share your knowledge and experience. So a lot of times this can be difficult if it's a hard situation, but the ones that you are comfortable with sharing, if somebody is going through the same thing, or you have an opportunity to speak up and share your story or become a speaker at something, go ahead and share those obstacles, because sometimes it's not all about I made it this far and I'm successful, but also like what are the difficulties that we had to get there, whether it was through college, whether it is the situation at work, like let's say being called a diversity hire, or being given derogatory comments or sexist comments in your work environment, and how you fought through that. So that's also really important to share. And the last one is to become a mentor if you have the time and do something that you enjoy doing, finding a community where you can become a mentor and you can offer that advice to someone that is earlier in their career. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So helping raise the number of Latinas in engineering. What can we do to, help keep growing that number? We're going through engineering. I always say, just by becoming ingenieras, we're already changing these numbers. But if you want to be actively, active and engaging, what can we do to create more impact into making these changes? So the first one is to open doors and leave them open. Just like I told you with my job, even without thinking about it, I was already creating that, like leaving that door open for somebody else. So what are the opportunities that we have? Being successful and also bringing someone else along the way, not just thinking about ourselves, but like how can I help someone else along the way? What have I gone through that somebody else hasn't? Volunteering into different activities or different events where you can, demonstrate whether you're representing Latinas in engineering and talking about your experiences, or maybe just helping other events that already exist that are maybe for girls interested into STEM, talking about what engineering is, what opportunities have offered into your life, and how passionate you are about your engineering career. The next one is to reach out. Even if you have, if you are on the side where you have questions, how can you get those answers? How can you reach to others that might have those answers, or other like role models, things like that. We're out there creating a lot of content recently that is, for women in STEM, Latinas in engineering, and we're always really happy to, like if you ask for a call one to one, or you have a question, this is pretty much what we do this for, because we want to share that knowledge and help someone else. The next one is to use your skills. So be proud of the skills that you have. For example, in my first job, I was speaking 50% English and 50% Spanish. And to me, that was kind of like my favorite part to say. I was so connected to my roots, my Hispanic roots, where I was able to use Spanish, and I was able to make that create more value in my career. Because if I hadn't spoke Spanish, I had more of a limit into communicating with a lot of the employees. And for me, having those roots in speaking Spanish had helped me a lot, and I often found myself being able to have more information, to be able to have more what's the word? Oh, I lost it. To be more like, people feel more comfortable to sharing their ideas to engineers. Somebody that's working on something every single day, and sometimes us as engineers, we don't get as exposed, but they have more input or more insights. I was able to have the position where they were more trust. I had more trust, and they were able to share with me those ideas, and I was able to combine them. So to me, Spanish is one of the skills that have really stood out in my career and have helped me a lot. So definitely don't be shy of using those. And then the last one is to speak up when encountering unfair situations. So don't stay quiet, team up, and make sure that people know that this type of things are not acceptable in today's world. Engineering is a diverse career, and everybody can pursue engineering, and we need to make this field welcoming, because I've even read it recently where uh, people have written, engineering is still a career that doesn't take women as seriously. So we're slowly changing that, and we only do that by speaking up and making sure that situations that are unfair don't repeat again. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So what are some of the things that we have covered in this presentation? So now you should be able to take actions to know how to make your career yours, so that you know that this is for you, and these are the goals that you're setting for yourself, and you are able to excel in it. We also understand the privilege it is to be a Latina engineer, and how important this is for our community. We are creating diversity, and not only because engineering and STEM is part of, they're facing the newest technology, the newest inventions, and for us to be part of those conversations, of those tables, we get to have a say, and we get to participate and bring our point of view to those things. So no, not only as we being part, but we're representing the community that we come from. And we're also becoming, the role models for the next generations to come. And the last one is to apply your skills and opportunities to support and empower the next generation of Latinas in engineer. So not only fulfilling your career, but bringing others along their way, because we need more Latinas in engineering, because there is a place for us, and we are here to take it. So I hope you really enjoyed this conversation. If you have any questions, I guess I will see them somewhere, or somebody will ask me. But thank you so much for the opportunity to be talking today with you.
Thank you, Deanna, for the insightful presentation. This is Piper Cruz from HQ again. We're going to begin taking questions with Deanna Iracheta. Again, please use the chat function to send us your questions, and we'll get as many answered as possible. If you don't have time for your question, we will connect you with the speaker directly to get it answered after the webinar. We do have 2 questions from the audience. The first one is, do you have any recommendations for engineers learning engineering or any STEM subject in a language that isn't their first language?
Yes, don't be scared of asking anyone that can help you find these things. When I was a student, I found myself sometimes taking tests and not understanding one word in the problem, where it would kind of like throw the whole entire problem, make it more difficult to me, because I was not able to understand what it was asking me for. It wasn't as much that I wasn't able to solve the problem, I just couldn't even get to what it was asking me for. So to me, it came to that position where I'm like, I'm in the middle of a test. If I don't, like, it's simply comes to a language barrier, not at what I know as far as in engineering. So, I had to go out there and be like, hey, I don't understand. Like, if you could rephrase the problem, maybe I could actually get a chance to demonstrating how much I know. At work, I also find that all the time as well. I don't know specific words, and every single day I find myself asking. And sometimes I'm shy to ask. What does this word mean? I've never heard it before. But if I don't ask, I'm not gonna learn it. Or maybe even I write it down and then I go and search it because it is really important to like not feel afraid of learning. Every day you're going to be learning something new. If you find that language is a barrier or there's words that you're having difficulty with, don't be afraid to ask for them because they're going to help you in the long run. And sometimes it's really basic, really common ones. And once you, like, if you hadn't asked, you will be stuck not understanding that. And the moment you ask and you realize, it's like it might make a lot of things easier.
Great, thank you. And another question is, let me see. Um, how often should you revisit the priorities for crafting your career?
I would say maybe even once a year would be ideal, I guess, at least in my case. Knowing that you're on the right track, because going back, every month might be way too like too soon. Especially if you're looking into, as you're getting through your first job, is this the job that do you enjoy this job? You know, do you want to look for something else? What is your next path? Have you found something that you enjoy more? Is there another opportunity coming? So I think anything between 6 months to a year would be the ideal time because it gives you enough time to kind of go through a couple of months of learning or go into like let's say your new job, and then you're able to reflect on that and say, is this what I want to do? Has something changed in my life that requires a different priority or a different goal? And you're able to kind of like adapt with that.
Thank you. Another question is what organizations offer mentorship opportunities for Latinas?
Okay, I know there's Latinas in STEM. There is Latina Geeks. That is not as much as in engineering, but it's more in general like tech and STEM. Uh, I won't say mine because mine doesn't have a program established yet. It is something that we want to get to, but we don't have yet. But just in general, I found it where if I find someone that I look up to, that it's in STEM or something like that, I I reach out. Even sometimes we don't know each other, but just by the fact that you send a message like, hey, like I look up to you, or like I have specific questions. If you reach out to someone with specific questions, you're very likely to get an answer from someone. A lot of us like to share what we know, to share what we're able to give back. And I've had it where somebody reached out to me and they're like, hey, can you be my mentor? And I'm like, I am more than happy to. If I can meet with you every now and then, maybe not as often as like once weekly, but maybe once a month. It's something that I myself as a professional, I enjoy, and I know a lot of other people also do. So even if you're not able to find specific programs set up already, you can also reach out to different professionals to, even if it's not officially like call them a mentor, but if you have those conversations with them, they're pretty much, your mentors and guiding you through it.
Okay. Next question is what is your favorite part of being a Latina engineer, both the career and the influencer?
In my career, I am really creative. So I really like to come up with solutions, make designs, and then see them actually become something physically that I'm able to see and see that it work, or if it didn't. So to me, that's my favorite part as being an engineer. As being a Latina and engineer, I think, after I got out of college and I started working, it kind of brought a whole different meaning to why I chose engineering. I enjoyed physics and I wanted, and also what drove me to mechanical engineering. But once I was able to, kind of share my story and, have a, create a scholarship, create an event, create a network, that just kind of made me really happy because I was able to meet others like me. And I was able to, even if it was, just one conversation with someone else, I was able to make a little bit more of a difference than just my life. And I think always helping has always really something that made me feel really good. I'm able to do something else.
Thank you. Okay, next question is, can you provide some examples of effective ways to report unfair situations so they don't reflect poorly on
Could you repeat that question, please?
Okay, can you provide some examples of effective ways to report unfair situations so they don't reflect poorly on you?
Yeah, so I think the best way is to, and it depends how comfortable you feel, but if you are told something, like for example, let's say you got called a diversity hire, or you were told something, racist or something like that, it's to not as like not even accept it, be like, that is not okay. And you don't have to be angry, you don't have to be, making like a big thing out of it, but you have to be serious about it. You have to be like, this is not okay. If you're not in a situation where you are able to kind of like confront it at the time, I say just always find the time to do it more, like maybe not in front of everyone, but being like, hey, let's say a name of someone, like, can I talk to you? And just kind of share, why you feel like it's not, why you feel it's unfair, why you feel like it's not appropriate. Um, and just kind of like giving them an opportunity to understand it so that that doesn't repeat. If that then keeps happening, then and if it's multiple times, then it's a moment when you have to escalate it, and that should never be taken against you, because it is a situation where it's really not acceptable.
And then, another question is, I am Latina in the US, but did not go to college in the US. What are ways that I can support other Latinas?
Um, so you're Latina, you didn't study in the US, right? I guess I want to ask, like, are you doing engineering in the US? Um, are we able to get that answer?
Let's see if they follow up. If not,
That's all right.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
so we have all, there's Society of Women Engineers, and I know you have, an affinity, the Latinx affinity group. So getting involved in those things and attending, even with the event that I plan, a lot of times it's like you don't have to be an active Latina in engineering. You can just be a supporter, and you can show that support. I have a couple men registered for it, and to me, it means the world that they're interested into showing up and also supporting. So just kind of like volunteering. If you want to be, like for example, I went public and I just kind of like created my profile and share my story. I'm able to do that as well. If it's a nonprofit, let's say that it's creating scholarships for these groups, then you can also help contribute in that way. But yeah, I think that's all I can think of right now.
Okay. And this is our last question. What are some ways that companies can be more sensitive to associates who are first-time college grads and therefore first-time working in a company at that level?
I feel like, well, from my experience, I feel like I've had a really welcoming environment, both the jobs that I've had. When I started my first job, I actually got offered like an internship and then transitioned into a full time. So they fully understood that I was going into it. I was still in school and I was going to learn as I went. Being really clear about it too. When I went for the position, I was like, hey, I don't have everything that I need yet to, so I'm going to be learning, but I have that like I'm eager to learn it, and it was very well received, and I was guided through the whole environment. If you feel like maybe you're not being as supported as you could, then ask for that support. Ask your manager, hey, these are some of the things that we could do to kind of like improve, my growth, because you want to contribute to the company. So if you go and ask for things that you need to grow or to learn, I don't think there should be a negative reaction to that, because you're looking to fulfill that position and to get better.
Thank you, Diana. That's all the time we have for questions today. Let me change the slide. You'll now see again the post-webinar survey on your screen. Please take a few moments to give us your feedback from today's event. It's a really short survey, and we do use it to help us plan for future programming. I'd like to thank you and everyone for tuning in and attending Latina Engineers, Changing What Engineers Look Like. A big thank you goes out to Diana Iracheta, our wonderful speaker. A very special thank you as well to Marissa Doyen, the Hispanic Heritage Month lead for the Society of Women Engineers Latinas Affinity Group, for assisting with the webinar. Remember, you can always email learning@swe.org if you have questions for the speaker or need any support for this webinar. A recording of this session will be sent to all attendees, and the on-demand version will be made available in the Advanced Learning Center under On-Demand Content. If you learned from and enjoyed this web session, and we hope you did, you can find more professional development at advancedlearning.swe.org. I'd like to wish everyone a nice rest of your day, and thanks again for joining us. Bye-bye.